Welcome everyone to Internships 101, how to land and succeed at your internship. We're going to be focusing on finding internships, specifically paid, but I'm also going to talk about finding unpaid internships and how we can potentially get paid to do so. So let's start. First thing that we start off with, we say that degrees are great, but internships make a difference, right? So we are all going to college for some reason or another, but all of it is generally for the idea of getting a job, a well-paying job, right? And a job that really requires some sort of particular degree. So university officials and employers maintain that partaking in one or more internships will set a student apart from his or her peers. Completing internships before graduation is integral to finding meaningful employment in today's job market. So this is a little quote that we like to start off with. And it's really just saying that a degree is absolutely great, but having relevant experience in the field that you want to go into helps you really stand out in terms of the competition, right? We are in a globally integrated world, and I think we're seeing that even more being in a virtual world, right? You can work from anywhere in the world now with the ability to work virtually. Something that has always existed, but I think has become more transparent in the COVID-19 virtual world that we're living in. The first thing that we might be thinking about is what an internship is and what does an internship generally do for you? So an internship is a short-term work experience that gives you experience in a professional environment. It emphasizes on learning, and that's really important because it helps you gain skills that are essential to becoming a standout candidate in the job search, as well as just essential foundational skills for success in the workplace. It allows us to gain connections in the field of interest, right? So a lot of you may have heard before the idea, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I always push back on this, and so do a lot of the counselors in the office. And we say it's really who knows what you know, right? But we know that it's essential to having contacts in the field for you to be able to really be someone that can take that next level to get a job. And that's where an internship comes into play. It really helps us gain those contacts. And it also helps you clarify your career goals. I like to tell students an internship is almost like renting your career at a low stakes level, right? So you think that you might want to go into a particular field, try it out to really make sure that that's where you want to go. If you end up deciding in an internship that you weren't really the biggest fan of where you are, that's totally fine. It says that you just learned something that's really important. You're not spending years of your life now in a field that you're not really interested in. So internships have a lot of things that it can help you really be able to do. So first, it's going to be relevant experience for your resume, right? Which is very helpful. You build a sense of professionalism. So you get exposure to what it is like working in a corporate level organization or whatever type of organization it is, but you're gaining that professionalism for those that work in the field. It creates a network of professional contacts. So just like we said earlier, sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who knows what you know. It helps you develop leadership and interpersonal skills. So you may be taking on new projects. You may be leading a team. You're also, odds are, going to be in a team environment. So it helps you learn a lot of those skills that are needed and essential for success in the workplace. There is an organization called NACE. It's the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they do a survey every year, and they survey employers and then report back to the colleges the skills that are essential for individuals to really get employment and for success in the workplace. And majority of these skills are things that are called softer skills. Softer skills are skills that are something that you could pick up in any type of experience that you're in. Excellent, like time management. And the idea is softer skills are a little bit harder to measure in a measurement way, but they're really still essential for success. So an interpersonal and a leadership skills are your softer skills, and those are very important to employers according to so many of these surveys that they do each year. Also, of course, if it's a paid internship, it can help you with your college costs, but it could also help you with your living expenses, right? Like I mentioned before, it allows you to explore the profession that you think you're interested in. You could do so much research, you could talk to so many people, but at the end of the day, you don't know if you want to actually go into the field until you try it out. And then establishing references is great too, right? When you're applying for roles, odds are they want someone that can speak to your skill set and speak to what you've accomplished. So when you're in an internship site, you gain these people that can speak to your skills and your work-related strengths. And then the last thing is that it also increases employment opportunities. So an internship for some organizations may be a long-term interview. And what I mean by that is generally you're being evaluated as you go through the internship. So your manager, your team, they are seeing if you would fit for a long-term career there. If there's an opening in their organization and they really had a positive experience with you, odds are you'll be informed of that opening. And then on the other side of that, if you do have an internship where maybe the organization doesn't have openings, it still positions you to be a competitive candidate in that competitive job market. All right, so I'm going to show a quick video of a student who we've worked with that has interned previously.
Hi, my name is Shahzoda. I'm a junior at Brooklyn College studying computer engineering, and I'm excited to share my story about how Magna Center helped me. I entered Brooklyn College as a freshman, and I didn't have a job experience. I didn't really know what an internship was. I never had done a cover letter or a resume, and I came here completely clueless. I first went to the job fair, and I just worked as a volunteer from 8 a.m. to the whole day, and it was absolutely amazing because I got to meet all the staff and I got to meet all the students, and I was really excited just to be a part of it. So I went to more panels, more events, and eventually I became an ambassador volunteer, which was like an unpaid position, and I worked a lot, and it was absolutely amazing. There's a lot of things people don't tell you when you're a first generation student or you're an immigrant. Nobody really helps you find an internship. Nobody really tells you when you're supposed to start looking, and I certainly didn't have anyone. When I started volunteering here, I learned about all the different things I could do. I met with so many different panelists. I met with so many different inspirational men and women, and I felt really empowered, and I started just looking for an internship as a freshman. Since then, I've secured an internship as a website developer. I've secured an internship as a software engineer. I've done small size companies where me and like one other person was the whole engineering team. I've had a medium sized company where Teachers Pay Teachers was the company I worked at, and I got to do everything from DevOps to software engineering to website development, and I'm really proud of that. This summer I'll be going to JP Morgan, and it just would not be possible without the support and advice I got from the Magna Center. I most definitely recommend the Magna Center to all the students here. It is a great free resource, and I feel like everyone should take advantage of it. They have a lot of really important services. The most importantly is a drop-in session where you can just come in without an appointment and you can have someone review your resume. They have a lot of really great events, including the panels they do, the job fairs. We also have Hire BC, which is an internal job database where employers from all over the nation come specifically to recruit Brooklyn College students. There's also an alumni mentoring program that I've also taken advantage of. We also do company visits, and I feel like it's really, really important that every student uses these. So definitely stop by 1303 James Hall.
Shahzoda came to the Magna Center as a freshman, and I think in total she did 3, maybe 4 internships. And because of that, she was such a competitive candidate that fortunately she had 2, 3, maybe 4 different job offers. I know she had a job offer with Facebook, for example. There was JP Morgan. So really the ability for her to begin her internships helped position her really nicely. Now, I want to talk a little bit about internships. I know that we're focusing on paid internships, but I also want to lay out a little bit of information about other internships that are available. So there are so many different types of internships, paid internships, which are always going to be ideal. There's also going to be unpaid internships. Sometimes that accounts for about 50% of the internships that are out there. There's academic credit. So maybe the internship is unpaid, but you can gain some credit towards your coursework. So that's a nice way to kind of supplement an unpaid internship. There's stipend awards, which I am going to spend a little bit of time on. And ultimately what this does is get you paid to do an unpaid internship. There's international types of stipend awards, and also international internships that are out there. So maybe you're interested in going abroad and also interning abroad. There's on-campus internships, something I'm also going to talk a little bit about later on, because there's a really great opportunity for on-campus internships that are coming up this summer. There's now virtual internships, something that probably wasn't as common about a year and a half ago. Many intern providers and employers were able to successfully transition their internships online, and many of them are considering keeping that even when things return to whatever normal we're going towards. And then we have a recommendation. So we recommend completing at least 2 internships before graduation. Where do we get this number from? It's not abstract. It actually comes from that NACE company that I was telling everybody about earlier, or should I say association. And they did a survey and they found that 65% of employers tend to want students that have completed 2 or more internships before graduation. And that makes them really competitive for the hiring process. So the recommendation is 2 internships before graduation. For those of you that may be graduating soon and are unable to get 2 internships in, that's totally fine, not something to panic about, because these types of numbers are really just things that we include to help structure. Yeah, so I know that someone had posted in the chat that they're a senior graduating this semester, and they didn't really have the chance to do an internship. So we could definitely shoot for 1 internship if that's possible. But there are other things also for the seniors out there that maybe they're not entirely sure, they're looking at graduating. We can always like do a one-on-one session and kind of talk out what it looks like right now, where you're moving towards, and how we could structure maybe some experience that you do have that are related to the field already. So this is a number that's a goal, but if it is running a little behind, that's still okay. First, I want to talk a little bit about unpaid internships because they are out there. Again, about 50% of unpaid internships exist. So we can't ignore the fact that they're there. And sometimes they may end up being beneficial or something that you might want to consider. So we recommend, of course, paid internships, but you want to ask yourself some questions when you consider what an unpaid internship is going to look like. The first question is, do you have experience in the field already? The reason why we ask that is because if you don't have experience in the field, it might be a little bit easier to get an unpaid internship experience under your belt that will then position you for a paid internship experience in the future. Will you have opportunities to expand your network? So earlier on, we kind of talked about what an internship should be doing and what an internship looks like. Again, network is one of the most important kind of outcomes of your internship. If you're able to extend your network and you are able to gain contacts in the field, an unpaid internship for a short period of time may have a really great payoff because now you have all of these contacts in different areas of the field that you're most interested in. Then think to yourself if it's a reputable company, right? So sometimes, unfortunately, there are going to be organizations that are looking for unpaid interns so that they are able to benefit from themselves. So you want to make sure that a company that is doing an unpaid internship is reputable. There are some resources that you can always use to take a look at organizations, and I could put them in the chat. The first one I always recommend is glassdoor.com. It's a really great website. You could look up company reviews about them. There's also Vault, which is provided, we provide premium access for Brooklyn College students, and you can access it right on the career tab of the portal. And then you could always look on websites like LinkedIn. So just a few to do some research to ensure that it's a reputable company. The other thing that you want to think about is if the internship provides training and exposure to the field that you would be going into, right? So what we said earlier is that internships really should be moving towards the skills that you want to develop, as well as helping you determine if this is the career that you really want to go into. So an internship should not be asking you to do things that really just benefit them. There's a term that we say, you shouldn't be the gopher, right? You shouldn't be hey, go get me coffee, or hey, do this, that's really not helping you develop. These are just a few of the questions to really consider. We do have an extensive handout that you could take a look at, some questions to think about, as well as additional resources to just take a look at. So now that we talked about unpaid internships and considering them, there is another option that's out there for our students. And this is the stipend awards. So stipend awards are ways to get paid to do unpaid work. Some stipend awards are external, which means organizations other than Brooklyn College have them, and some are internal. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the internal stipend award at Brooklyn College. So the stipend award is for those who plan on interning, but the internship is unpaid or very low paying. It's available for both undergraduate and graduate students. It's an opportunity for those who cannot afford to intern for free. So I'm sure that many of you on this call today, it's very difficult to do an unpaid internship. And we acknowledge that, and we know that for sure. We work with tons of different students with a variety of backgrounds. So we want to help in whatever way we can. The base amount for the internship, the stipend award, is $1,800, which means that if you are selected for the stipend award, it would start with $1,800, but you can request more based on your own circumstances. The deadlines are going to be for spring, it's October. So if you want to intern in the spring, your deadline would be October. And if you want to intern in the summer or fall, the deadline is March. So really the rule of thumb is that the semester that you want to intern, you apply the semester before. There's more information on this slide, but I also just want to include, you do have to be a current student at the time that you would be interning. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing that I always like to tell students is it is money, just like any scholarship application, it is competitive. So I always encourage students to use the resources that are available to help you stand out in the application. On that more information site, one of my colleagues, or actually a few of my colleagues, hosted a workshop that talks about how to stand out in the stipend award application. I highly encourage you to review that workshop because they give a lot of really great tips. And then the other thing I also suggest is for the stipend award, always start early. There's some essays that you have to complete. You have to upload a resume. So starting early will give you time to ensure that you are putting your best foot forward in the application process. And the last thing, my tip, is to take advantage of all of the college resources that are available that can help you in the application process. And what I mean by that is, if you have to upload a resume, so use the Career Center to review your resume so that you ensure that it's the best possible document that you're submitting. For any essays, feel free to use the Learning Center so that they can review it and ensure that you are submitting the best possible document. Although this may sound like stuff that makes sense, some students don't do it, and I think it's a disservice when you're not putting your best application forward. I do want to know if there are any questions about the stipend award. So Alex, do you have to be enrolled for external stipends? So external stipend awards, you are going to be able to find it also as a subpage for the more information link. I will also send that out to you all. Each organization, their requirements are going to vary, so you would want to check. As I mentioned, definitely feel free to message in the chat if you have questions, but also unmute yourself, and also let me know if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. I am highly interruptible and love to hear from you guys as well. So let's talk a little bit about international internships. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but let's go a little bit further. So international internships are really something is so awesome. I did not have a chance to study abroad or do an international internship, and that's one thing that I really wish I was able to do so. International internships will allow you to gain experience in another culture, which is really awesome. And it's a really great resume item because you can talk about you gaining exposure to this culture. It prepares you for the 21st century globalized marketplace. So earlier I had mentioned how, especially with the pandemic, we've seen just how interconnected the world is with technology, which is great, but also it is going to make the competitive global market even more competitive, because technically, I don't know if this would happen, you could be in any country working for any organization in another country, right? Technically. So just, it helps you show, I gained exposure with this culture and I learned about communicating with these people. You can also earn academic credit, which is really fantastic. And it helps you strengthen your resume. So like I said before, and something that we suggest and just say is that summer may be a good time to participate in an international internship. So where do college students intern? So what I'm putting up is internship opportunities that I've know of or have found that psychology majors specifically have interned with. Many of you probably recognize majority, if not all, of the names that are listed here. One thing that I want to mention, just because we're here, I'm also surprised no one said SiriusXM, but that's probably because I have a soft spot for SiriusXM. I interned with them, so I'm kind of representing myself on here. I was with their university relations team, helping them with their internship program. Yeah, so a lot of organizations, some of which you may be a little bit surprised at, but pretty exciting stuff. All right, so when are internships available? Shocker, every semester, right? So just something to add to that though, some organizations will have interns that they hire once a year. Other organizations may have internships that they hire for every single semester. It's going to depend on the organization and the way in which they really structure their internship program. Sometimes students will ask me what the general duration of an internship is, and that's going to really vary on quite a few factors, again, established by the internship program. I think on average, we see about 8 to 10 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks, sometimes 12 weeks. But if you're kind of just trying to think in terms of how long it could potentially be, 8 to 10 weeks is pretty common. So this is a great question. So Alex had asked if it is normal for college graduates to intern. So the answer is yes. It's going to depend on the organization, as if they are going to be accepting recent graduates generally. So some organizations do accept recent graduates as interns, and other organizations will require you to be enrolled in the fall, let's say, if you're interning in the summer, or currently enrolled while you're interning. It kind of just depends on the internship program's model and what they're looking for, some of which will be open to recent grads and others not so much. And then the other thing just to add is that, of course, during academic year, so spring and fall semesters, odds are the internship will be part-time. In the summer, there is a good chance that organizations will expect you to be full-time, because the idea is you won't be in classes in the fall. So just a couple of notes. I would say none of this is necessarily all exact. It's not an exact science of internship programs in general. Speaking from previous experience, SiriusXM Pandora had internships every single semester. So they had fall, spring, and summer. Fall and spring, they did part-time, and then summer, they did full-time. Summer internships, they did end up having a greater number of interns for the summer and less for the fall and spring. Something just to add, again, it's not an exact science, but sometimes it is a little bit less competitive for a fall or a spring internship, because students are balancing schoolwork as well as their work experience. So it kind of shrinks the candidate pool at times. Not an exact science, but generally what we see is there is an increase in people looking for internships for the summer because they're not in classes. So just something to keep in mind, and consider while you're applying for internships, maybe a fall or spring one may also be a great way to gain that exposure and experience. So what do employers look for? I actually mentioned this a little bit earlier. So one thing that I like to say, and those of you that are on the call with me, I say this probably a lot if you've met with me. A lot of these things depend. So it depends on the employer. So some employers may look for juniors and seniors. Other employers may be open to everyone. Some employers may be looking for those that are currently enrolled, and others may be open to those that are recent grads. So a variety of options. Some employers look for a GPA of 3.0 or above. This kind of sometimes depends on the particular field. So some fields may have a GPA requirement, other fields not so much. I think one thing that I've been seeing is that the GPA requirements aren't as strict as they once were. Employers understand that students may be balancing a lot of other tasks and responsibilities, which could explain for a lower GPA. So if you don't have a 3.0 GPA and you are kind of freaking out right now, totally do not freak out. There's a lot of other things that go into applications as well. Generally, employers are looking at a holistic application approach for internships, jobs, etc. So like I kind of alluded to earlier, more competitive internships seek previous internship experience. This might be part-time jobs, volunteer positions, student government participation. So remember earlier I said, potentially at times, maybe an unpaid internship may be a little bit easier to secure because you don't need the experience versus a paid internship. You might need the experience and you might have a greater candidate pool. And then the last thing, again, stuff that I spoke about earlier in terms of the NACE skills that employers look for in interns. So this includes communication, both written and oral communications, working in a team, making decisions and solving problems, being able to plan, organize, and prioritize. So those are our softer skills that we mentioned earlier. And then the last is being proficient with computer software programs. That's our harder skill, that's more measurable. But a lot of times organizations feel that they can teach you those harder skills, right? You can learn how to use certain computer software programs, but those softer skills are more essential to success. Tip, additional requirements vary depending on the employer industry. Okay, so very similar to what I said before, it really is going to depend on the organization and what they require in particular. So I think this is really essential, right? So we might know about internships. We're going to talk a little bit about how to find internships, but the next part is really helpful because, all right, how do I get to the internship? How do I get here? How do I create a plan? And it's all about preparation. All right, so the first thing that you can always do is speak with a career counselor, myself, or any of the other fantastic Magner Center team to talk about your career goals. Conduct research regarding the career. So you talk to us, but then the next step is doing research to ensure, one, that that's what you're interested in, and two, that you're making an informed decision. You want to begin to define your goals. There are self-assessment tests that are available if you are interested in them. The Career Center does offer one called the Color Q, which is a personality assessment that helps us look at your work-related strengths, different fields that you may be interested in, etc. And while you're defining your goals, also think to yourself, what skills do you have? What are your values and what are your interests? I have an industrial organizational psychology background. For those that may be interested in the field, you know what that is, but for those that don't, IO psychology really looks at applying a lot of the psychological principles to the workplace. So something that we always talk about is ensuring that your own values meet the values of the organization that you're working with. And that'll help you have a successful and really pleasant experience in your job. And your values can vary, right? Some people may have a value and they want to make a lot more money. Other people's value may be a work-life balance. So determining your values is really helpful when you're starting to look for employment in internships and really beyond. You want to identify companies and industries of interest. So again, for those of you on this call, I have probably spoke about this to you before in different capacities that I've spoken with one-on-one, but creating a list of organizations that you potentially want to work for and intern with. So maybe you're not going to be working with that organization right away. Maybe the organization isn't 100% hiring yet, but it's a place that you reference to see and keep yourself organized. Choosing a major early can be helpful. We put that there, but I like to also say to students, like, you're in college, feel free to explore your career options, your major. So yes, declaring a major early is helpful, but if you end up declaring a major, you do an internship and you don't like that career field that you're going into, it's okay. That's okay. That's why you're in college. Take advantage of the career center's resources and services. So participate in career panels, visits, company visits, networking events, and lastly, get a mentor in the field. And really what that looks like is connecting with a Brooklyn College alum, whether it be at an event or via LinkedIn, to say, hey, I'm really interested in this field and I'd love to talk a little bit more about it. That helps you ensure that that's really, again, where you want to be. Any questions on this? I do know a question came in. Great question. So there's a question, would unpaid internships be more suitable for those with no experience? And just like how I like to answer a lot of things, it kind of depends. And what I mean by that is unpaid internships may be easier to secure with less experience in the field, but internship programs as a whole, including paid, do see a holistic approach. So if there are essays, if there are things along those lines where you're saying like, hey, I have all this other experience that I've done, or I've been really interested in this career because of XYZ, maybe they don't care so much if you don't have the experience because you have, let's say, those softer skills that are more important. So an unpaid internship at times can be less competitive for someone with less experience. Great. So there's a question about like particular fields and their competitiveness for unpaid internships. And it's going to depend. It depends really on the employer and the organization. There is, fortunately, if you're interested in help, I'm going to talk a little bit about this soon, but I do have some resources of internship sites that are paid and unpaid that you could take a look at, some of which are health related, as well as most likely it caters to most of the people's career fields that they're interested in on this call today as well. So a strong resume. Your resume is ultimately your marketing tool, right? The resume gets you the interview. The resume is you before they meet you in real life. And real life may mean right now behind a computer screen, but that's what it is. A strong resume includes any student organizations that you may have been a part of, anytime you've taken on leadership roles. That's great. If you don't have that experience, there's work or internship experience. Sometimes students tend to think that only work experience is experience, and they volunteer and have done a lot of other things, but they don't see that as being experience we can add to the resume. You absolutely can. Any other campus involvement is great to have on a resume as well. So if you're in student government, if you're on the student newspaper, you're in any clubs, that is fantastic to put on your resume. The other things that I've added to students' resumes is any courses that you've taken that are relevant to your career. We've also expanded or on any course projects that you may have accomplished. So if you were in, and I always use this example, so any of my counseling students on here, if you were in a counseling course and I was in a counseling course as an undergraduate student, and I had to create a skit that talked about the counseling process. So I might add that to a academic highlight section, so expanding on my coursework for the resume. Students also don't know sometimes that they can add any like career events that you may have participated in, or any kind of like skill building that you may have participated in. So this could be in the form of conferences, career panels, company visits you could put, skill building workshops, et cetera, et cetera. And that would be really considered professional development. Again, I will send out this link, but we have a Magna resume guide. It's a super detailed guide that has resumes, thank you letters, and cover letters there. And then there is also a template. So if you are interested in research, or you're interested in going into the academia field, that is also accessible on the resume guide. So there's a CV sample. All right. So I talked a lot about what an internship was. I talked about how to prepare for an internship. I talked about resume writing, but you're probably saying, all right, like give me the information about actually getting an internship. So here we go. So there are quite a few resources out there for internships. So there's internship websites that exist, right? There's a website called internships.com. There are specific industry websites. And what I mean by that is, if anyone is interested in HR on the call, there is an organization called SHRM, SHRM, and that is an industry website that those that are interested in HR may take a look at for jobs or internships. And each industry has some sort of association that has that specific industry job board. There are, of course, company websites. So if you created that list that I talked about earlier to kind of get ready to apply, you could always go to the company websites. There is LinkedIn, which is an amazing, phenomenal resource. It costs tons of money to employers to use, so they use it all the time. It is your professional version of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. But there's tons of jobs on there, and recruiters are constantly looking for talent that they may end up just reaching out to you and asking you to apply to something. And then there's HireBC. I think we're going to talk about that in a few slides, but it is Brooklyn College's online job and internship board. So it is specifically accessible to Brooklyn College students and alumni, which includes thousands of jobs and internships. We post them every single day, so they're always being added. And you access it by going to the portal. You go to the career tab and then select HireBC. You have to set up an account. If you have not set up an account already, it asks you to just complete a few different fields, and then you have to upload a resume. Your resume ends up then getting sent over to the Career Center, and one of the counselors, myself or anyone else, takes a look at your resume and generally will say whether or not we approve the resume to begin applying. And students sometimes get a little upset if it gets not approved. And what I like to say to students is, odds are most resumes are not approved in a day. And the reason for that is because when we start to go into your resume, there is stuff that we want to help you ensure that you're positioning yourself best for employers. So we'll give you feedback on how to do so. If you're interested in counseling, and you are not going on to like the PhD research side of counseling, I would definitely recommend a resume versus a CV. Can college graduates be interested in interning for interns through HireBC, or do we need to be a student during this semester? So Anthony, tell me if I answer your question correctly. If not, definitely let me know. But HireBC will host a bunch of jobs and internships. Some employers may be looking for interns that are current students only, and other employers may be open to current students as well as recent graduates. Okay, great. Just want to make sure that I understood correctly. Definitely keep the questions coming, everyone. Yes. So graduates can use HireBC as well. HireBC is specifically for Brooklyn College alum as well as current students. And the other benefit of HireBC that I forgot to mention is that it is just accessible to you guys. So there are almost 18,000 current students at Brooklyn College. Sounds like a big number, but it's so much smaller compared to probably the number of people that have access to the internet, right? Anyone with access to the internet can go onto LinkedIn and apply to a job. So the pool of potential candidates is so much smaller. And when people post on HireBC, that's because employers are reaching out and want Brooklyn College students. They all the time say, hey, I want to hire your students because I know that they're eager and they're great workers. So how do I get this position out there? So all the time we get that. Networking is important too to secure an internship. So again, it's not who you know, it's who knows what you know, right? So friends are a part of your network, family are a part of your network, faculty are a part of your network, any mentors you pick up are a part of your network, and alumni, especially alumni. Brooklyn College alum want to help Brooklyn College students. We get emails all the time. I want to help Brooklyn College students. So by attending different career panels that we host, even virtually, you could connect with alum to talk to them about their careers. You're not asking them for a job or an internship, right? But you're saying that this is the field you're interested in. You're building a professional relationship with them so that when a job or an internship comes into their organization, they remember you specifically. And then don't miss events. Always attend events that the Career Center offers. So we have a career fair twice an academic year. We have them in generally October and in March. The last two career fairs were virtual. So that gave a lot of students the opportunity to meet with employers for both jobs as well as internships. If there are times that recruiters are coming to campus to present to students, or if they're doing it virtually, definitely attend. And employer presentations, if an employer is coming in to speak with students, even if maybe they're not necessarily looking to recruit right away, it still adds people to your network. So earlier, for those that were on the call when we were getting started, I showed two other events that are coming up, one of which is going to feature employers. Definitely recommend to attend that event. Get that contact information of the employers that are there so that you can add them to your network. You could send them an email thanking them for their time and even letting them know what your interests are. The month of June, we are going to be a theme. Our theme for the month of June is for students that graduated. So we're going to have organizations come in that have different programs for recent grads that you could be a part of that help you gain some experience as well as skills. So be on the lookout for our June programming specifically. That's going to be catered towards recent graduates. The first is HireBC. Again, I explained that a little bit. It's the Brooklyn College Online Job and Internship Board. We also have an entire video series that talks about how to navigate HireBC. So if you need some help with that or you're curious about it, check out those videos. There is a recorded internship 101 session. So it's kind of similar to this, but there is a 3-part workshop series that you could take a look at. They explain some additional resources and ways to get an internship. Yeah, I will include this in the follow-up email for everyone. Vault.com is Magner Center's, I had mentioned it earlier, you could do research with it, but it also has a job board. And I believe the job board is technically something that people have to pay for, but Brooklyn College students get it for free. You could use this link, or you could go to the portal. Like I mentioned earlier, portal.brooklyn.edu, go to the career section, and there's something called Vault. We have a list of top paid internships. So as internships come in, they get added to this general list. And this list is specifically for organizations that are saying like, hey, we have all these different internships that we're hiring for this internship program. This is what we're looking for. So there's this link. Cuny every single week sends out a list of jobs, internships, events, resources, and really anything else. So I definitely highly recommend for students to subscribe to that because it specifically has every single week jobs, internships, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really great newsletter to subscribe to. It goes out every single Wednesday. So Vault is free for Brooklyn College students. It is called Career Insider, and they give a ton of information that includes different organizations you may want to work for. It includes, okay, all these pop-ups. So that there's rankings, so different jobs, different organizations you might want to work for. You can look into companies. So if you are interested in, for those that may be on the call about like IO psychology, for example, what consulting firms could you potentially work for if you want to be a consultant? There's their internships and job board. They have a whole bunch of career advice. And they also have guides, which are really extensive. That's like about top employers, top interview questions to answer, top internships. So really just a huge wealth of resources that you can explore. And their articles are really, really great as well. Many of which we put on like our own social media accounts on the Brooklyn College Magna Center social media for students to take a look at. So definitely a resource to take a look at. Like I said, if you use the link that I will send you all, you get the premium access, which is provided through Brooklyn College. So I keep a newsletter for psychology majors. It was a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Last year, I was a student. I was a first-year graduate student, and I was receiving a whole bunch of emails from the college, from Cuny, from wherever else, right? So that they could keep us kind of informed of what was going on. And I said to myself, okay, how do I make sure that I could keep psychology students connected with the Career Center, but not flood their inbox, because there's a potential that it's happening right now. So we created a psychology major newsletter. It is not something you subscribe to, actually. It's just a link. So it's actually a Google site. And I will also include this in the recap, but it's tinyurl.com/psychology newsletter. And when you get to it, you will start off on the page that I have there, but I opened it up here as well. So I encourage everybody to take a really deep dive into the newsletter, but for the sake of the workshop, I have a tab called Resources, Jobs, and Internships. And this is where we're going to focus today. So a whole bunch of things. I have resources. So if you're interested, not sure of what field of psych to go into, there's all these different resources. There are professional associations about the resources, et cetera, et cetera. Some videos that you can watch. But this is where I want to highlight a little bit. So I keep a psychology internship list. The list includes mostly two things: paid and unpaid internships. This list is a list of internship programs. And internship programs, the way that I define it, is organizations that generally have interns every single year, every semester, etc. Really, I know for a fact that they will take on interns. So what this is a listing really divided by a whole bunch of different fields of psychology. So if students are interested in going into counseling, here are some paid internship programs and unpaid internship programs with counseling. Here are some with both unpaid and paid. So the unpaid and paid idea, which is explained here, is that it varies from position to position and depends on the funding at the time that they're having people intern. So there is a link, the link tinyurl.com/psychology newsletter. this list is embedded directly in the newsletter. And it's on the resources, jobs, and internships tab. So I just click it and I just opened it up so that it's easier for everyone to see it. We have counseling, like I said. Someone had mentioned 7 Cups was something that they were a part of. So that's here, for example. And I'm always looking to add things to these lists. So as new programs come in that I learn about, I add to here. I think someone mentioned they were interested in health. So I also have, psychology is a huge major, right? There are so many fields you could go into. So odds are, if you're on this call and you don't see your particular field represented in one of these tabs, there is a good chance it's in the other section. So for someone who is interested in health, I know they mentioned earlier, I have a bunch of health psychology internships, but also healthcare pre-med internships. So one thing I do want to note about this particular resource is that these, again, are things that I know are always looked at. And what I mean by that is that they're always looking for interns, but there is a chance that it's not open yet, or maybe their application closed already. So I wanted to keep it where this would be a list that you can always access and be able to just say, okay, I want to potentially work with LifeSci New York City. I want to potentially work with Accenture. I want to potentially work with et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And right now it's not open, but it will be opening soon. So I just want to make that as a note, like there is a chance that some of these are currently closed or have not yet opened. There's another resource I'm going to talk about. Because education can be different for students, these job openings may also represent like more program. So you're still getting that experience, but it just might not be in the title of an internship. So I have this, but then as you scroll down, there's a lot of other resources that exist here. I told you earlier about Cuny's weekly career list. I directly embedded it on my site. So you can always click each list, and that's actually like a newsletter that they email every day. I mean, every Wednesday, sorry. Other newsletters, some tips on finding a paid internship. And then I have something called a rotating job and internship board. And the way that I explain this one is this is job or internships that come in that is being looked for. Now, I don't know if they're going to be hiring an intern every single year in this field, so I include it here. Those of you that may have been on campus with us, or those of you that even weren't on campus, I literally think of it as something that I would post on a board outside to say, hey, take a look at this, they're hiring now. That's how I differentiate the two. So anyone interested, for example, in education, you might want to do the Cuny Tutor Corps. And I know that they're offering for all majors. If you're interested in diversity campus recruitment, so maybe some HR related, they're looking. I actually have 2, Bloomberg and another organization called Dentsu. If you're interested in consulting, there's a human capital internship. If you're interested in social work, this is actually, they're looking for a social worker. But the idea is that these roles are ones that just come in, and as they come in, I put it on the Google site. I'm not 100% sure if it is a program, meaning I don't know if they're going to always look for interns. Sony most likely would, but I know that it's definitely open. And then for counseling ones, I may put something that's not 100% in the counseling domain, right? Because many of you probably know, if you're an undergrad, you can't go into counseling, but I like to get creative. So maybe you want to help with the vaccine distribution, and some of these roles, you don't need any healthcare experience for the vaccine distribution, for example. So it's becoming sometimes also creative in terms of the internships that we're looking for, some of which may be more like abundantly clear that this is the particular internship that you would be gaining experience for, and then others may be, okay, how do we link what this is to what you want to do? And what I always recommend to students is bookmark this so that you can check maybe once a week, because I'm always updating it. I update it every single day. So I added 2 roles. I added a role today here, and then I also added an event, an info session that also could be interesting for you guys. I know some were asking about internships that are open for those that are going to be graduating. So Cuny has a program called Internship to Employment, and they're looking for people in a variety of fields. So something to potentially look at if these fields cover what you're interested in, and they're hosting an info session. So that's also in the newsletter. It's just the events tab. And I differentiate between Magna events. So these two that I talked about earlier that I will also kind of close with later on. And then also outside events that people express that they're hosting themselves. There's a good question in the chat also. Is it possible to do 2 internships in the summer? I think that the answer would be yes. It's going to depend on the organization and their requirements. I'll give you, like for myself, I interned with SiriusXM, but still worked at the Career Center because my SiriusXM internship was part-time. So if both internships are part-time and you have the bandwidth to do both, you totally can. There is nothing wrong with it, but it's just making sure that it fits with your schedule. There is a new initiative that came from Cuny called the Cuny Recovery Corps. And we are looking, all Cuny campuses, so Brooklyn College as one of them, is looking to fill interns for various offices on campus, as well as for small businesses and nonprofit organizations. So ultimately, we are collecting any students' interests for this program via a Google form. So if you're interested in interning on campus virtually for a nonprofit or for a small business, you can express your interest through the linked form that is here. Again, I'll also include that in the recap email, but it's a really great opportunity. Highly recommend for students who are looking to intern for the summer. It's going to be 6 weeks long. And once we have additional information, those that are eligible, so there is some eligibility requirements. You could take a look on the form. Those that are eligible will receive additional information and how to do a formal application process. There's a question that came in also that is kind of a follow-up to the question that was asked about interning for 2 organizations. Absolutely. So if you're interning at 2 different organizations, we definitely want to show that on the resume, show that you were able to manage your time and commit yourself to do 2 different organizations that helped you gain that experience. All right, so what happens next? So after your internship, your employer will usually rate and complete an evaluation of your experiences so far. They can also contact the Magna Center and let us know what they thought of Brooklyn College students. You may also be asked to complete an evaluation of your own employer and your internship experience. Internship programs always look to improve, so they want your feedback to see how they can do so. Absolutely update your resume to reflect your experiences. Something that I recommend to students as they go through their internship experience, you probably are going to have a to-do list, or if you don't, keep a to-do list and write down everything. And the reason for that is because when you want to update your resume later on, you have like this kind of perfect booklet of everything that you've done to then figure out how we can translate that to your resume. After you translate your experiences to your resume, have a career coach at the Magna Center review it to ensure that it is positioning yourself in the best way possible. And then 1, stay connected with your internship supervisor. And colleagues is spelled wrong. So stay connected with your internship supervisor. That's really important. send them a thank you email, or, which is really nice, if you can, write them a handwritten thank you card. This goes a long way. Because you are interning with them. Yes, you're helping them, but they're investing in you, right? They're teaching you skills because they want you to develop. That's why they take on an intern, or that's the ideal reason why they have interns. They want to help people develop. So if you can write a handwritten thank you note to your supervisor, that is great. If you can't write a handwritten, send them an email. It goes a long way. Thanking someone in general really goes a long way. This is something that you can just keep in mind. If you have an internship experience and you want to share it with us, you can complete this form. Again, I can include this in the email as well. And it just says, like, I have this positive internship experience. We may ask if we can highlight you on our social media or put you on our website for that, like, quote. If you don't feel comfortable, definitely don't have to. But that would just be something that you could do as well. So safety in the internship search, what that really means is that there are hundreds of internships posted each year. We screen them, but not all the time can they be perfectly pre-screened. With the virtual environment, something that we've noticed is that, unfortunately, there are bad people in the world. There are employers that are trying to like kind of get under the radar. So just if you have a bad feeling about something with your internship, one, check out our employer red flags page. We have a bunch of information about what a red flag may be and when it may not be a legitimate job or internship. You can always reach out to the Magner Center. Or you can email intern@brooklyn.cuny.edu to say, hey, something seems off, and we will do a little bit of further investigation to help you out. Always use precautions when you meet a potential employer. Meet in public places. This is post-COVID, but meet in public places just in case. Yes, I could definitely put the red flags link in for you guys. Just give me 1 second. Again, generally everything should be fine, but if for some reason you have a bad feeling about the internship, let us know. 100%. And then it also helps us ensure that we take down an internship posting if it's a non-legitimate internship or organization. So it helps the Career Center as well, and helps ensure that no other students experience this. Recently, just as an example, a student got an email from someone that supposedly worked at Pfizer, and Pfizer is now a name that everyone knows, right? And they were looking for an intern, and they had received their resume through something, and the student never applied, and it almost looked perfect, but there was like something that seemed a little off. They were using some sort of different software to communicate with people. And fortunately, the student let us know, and we were able to take care of it and ensure that this didn't escalate. So just an important note to make on that. That's it in terms of what I wanted to share with everybody. I will send a follow-up email with all of the resources that I talked about today. I think one of the most essential resources is to definitely check out the newsletter, continue to bookmark it, check it once a week, because jobs, internships, usually paid internships, fortunately, come in all the time. I left my email here. You'll also get the email from me though. And if you wanted to schedule an appointment with myself or another career coach to talk further, you can always do that as well via this scheduling form.
Make sure to check out the My Career tab on the BC Navigator app, where you can track your career progress based on the amount of credits you've earned, stay updated on upcoming events from the Magner Center, and watch our videos for insight and advice on your career field.